Welcome, everyone, back to the boxing show. We are talking today about the junior welterweight division. Recently, we saw Richardson Hitchins compete against Jose Zepeda. For those of you who don't know, Jose Zepeda only had 3 losses. One of them was actually really controversial against Jose Ramirez, who I thought gave Josh Taylor quite the fight when they fought. So I thought that kind of legitimized Zepeda as a really good fighter, considering he should have gotten the nod in that fight. So kind of to give you an idea of where Zepeda is as a fighter, Richardson Hitchins, the prospect coming up, has been calling out Montana Love, who honestly I think Hitchins would have dominated Montana Love. Interestingly, Hitchins has recently said that he could easily take on the likes of Regis Prograis, Devin Haney, and Teofimo Lopez all back-to-back on the same night. He's that good of a fighter. He says his performance against Jose Zepeda was really, really interesting in the fact that Zepeda had never been beaten quite this dominatingly. And what I mean by that is Hitchins literally pitched a shutout, 12 rounds to 0 against Jose Zepeda. One referee gave Zepeda 1 round, and I don't know how, because that fight was one of the most one-sided fights I've ever seen. Angelo, you know a little bit about Zepeda. What are your thoughts on Hitchinson's performance against a fighter like that?
Yeah, it's a great performance. I mean, like you said, Zepeda's, he hangs in there with some great fighters. Ramirez, gave Taylor a great fight. Gave Taylor a scary decision even after being knocked down a few times. So, obviously, when you see something like that, you're impressed by someone like Richardson. And, we'll see what he does, I mean, calling out Prograis alone on one night is kind of scary. So, I don't know about all 3 of them, but, we'll see what he does. I like what I hear, so.
One thing I'll say is I saw one of Hitchins' really early fights and followed him on Twitter early on. If you're not following Richardson Hitchins on Twitter, he is a really entertaining guy. He throws around insults like crazy. He's very active on Twitter. Kind of fun guy to follow, honestly. He's got that bravado, that kind of attitude, but I kind of like it. He interacts with fans on Twitter, and that's kind of fun to see. Or X, formerly known as Twitter. One criticism Richardson Hitchins got this weekend was that he is, as some fans would say, an incredibly boring fighter. And I can't disagree, honestly. For fans who don't like that kind of defensive style of fighting, that we've seen fighters like Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson get criticism for, Hitchins is very much that type of fighter where I don't even know if he has the power really to hang at junior welterweight. Interestingly, I mentioned that Hitchins called out 3 of the best junior welterweights in the division, Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, and Regis Prograis, saying he could beat all 3 of them on the same night. Angelo, what are your thoughts on these crazy comments by Hitchins on Twitter?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's fun, and you keep calling it Twitter. I'm going to keep reminding you X now. It's fun. It's a fun, little throw out there. Obviously not realistic, right? I mean, the only guy who can do that is KSI, fights 2 guys in one night. No, but on a serious note, you're not going to beat those guys. But I hopefully he's legit, right? Hopefully he's saying that to get one of those fights, because then you're like, nice, you didn't do all 3 of them the same night, but if you get one of them, I mean, kudos to you. That's really great. And imagine he wins that fight. Now we're saying, okay, maybe he does have a boring style, but if it's a boring style that wins, it's a boring style that wins.
So any step-up names going around in your head for Hitchins in that division?
I like a Ryan Garcia fight. Yeah.
Okay.
I like the Ryan Garcia fight. I think Ryan, coming off the loss or whatever, it's tough for him. So I like that fight, and I think it puts Ryan back where he wants to be in conversations. And obviously, if Hitchins wins that fight, then it puts him where he wants to be in conversation. But I think it's a bigger risk to reward for Hitchins than it is for Ryan. I think Ryan wins that fight. That's huge for him. But Richardson Hitchins wins that fight, and you're kind of just saying, yeah, but Ryan's coming off the loss anyway.
Yeah, and honestly, I think Ryan does knock him out. Hitchins, I think if we see Hitchins against a guy like Ramirez or just a guy with maybe even a little more pop than Zepeda, it could be dangerous for Hitchins, or someone that can take a punch like Taylor even. And I think Ryan's a little better than Taylor. Speaking of the junior welterweight division, we have quite a stacked division there. Teofimo Lopez recently returning with that dominating performance over Josh Taylor. Devin Haney coming off of his win with over Lomachenko, moving up into the division to challenge Regis Prograis for his title. We have Regis Prograis coming off of a lackluster win, honestly, on his DAZN match in New Orleans. We have Ryan Garcia, who's moved up to the division after a temporary move back down for a fight with Gervonta Davis that he lost. Josh Taylor coming off of the loss to Teofimo Lopez after he unified all the belts in the division. And we have a Richardson Hitchins looking to make his name in the pound-for-pound list. We also have guys like we mentioned before, Zepeda, Ramirez, and Catterall. I'm curious, Chats, what are your current rankings for this division, your top 5 guys?
First off, let me start by saying it's a fun division. And while we were talking there for a second, I forgot about Catterall a little bit. That's a great fight for Hitchins, too. But top 5 was a quick little explanation on why. I think one is a no-brainer. Teofimo Lopez coming off a dominating win over, quote-unquote, the man of that division.
I agree with you there, actually. I think Teo kind of proved both with that win and his win over Lomachenko that he's the real deal. And sometimes he has an off night, but I think that's more to blame on his mental health and his in-ring ability.
And maybe his dad a little bit, too. I think maybe the corner has something to do with that. And I think one thing we've seen from Teo maybe he just fights to his opponent. Maybe the training camp is to his opponent, and that's why he has 2, great wins and 1, questionable loss. Coming at number 2, I got Regis Prograis. And I know that that's a little bit, controversial after his last performance. And I think one thing I can say about him is he's been dominant, and he's, gonna dominate Devin Haney, I think. I think Haney isn't gonna have the power up there. I think the chin's gonna be a little bit questionable, as it has been before already. And I think Prograis is gonna dominate and win that fight. With that, though, I still think I have to throw Haney at number 3, because even though he's going to lose to Prograis, I think that's the only fighter he loses to in that weight division. Maybe Taylor, but I think that's kind of like more of a size thing than anything, so I throw Haney number 3. Number 4, kind of a hot one here, Ryan Garcia. Tough loss to Tank, obviously, but, the rehydration clause I don't like, and maybe that's an excuse, but I think you got to give Ryan some time. I think he took that loss, first of all, really well, but also people forget how young Ryan Garcia is. Give him time. He deserves time. And rounding it up at number 5, I have Josh Taylor. Coming off a tough loss to Teo, I think that made him drop maybe more than he should have in this situation, and I'm excited to see what he does next, because I don't hate him. I'm a little bit of a fan. I'd like to see where he goes, but I mean, Teo, we'll see. Was coming off questionable performances, and Taylor looked lost in that fight.
Yeah, absolutely. The only ones I can honestly disagree with is I have Haney and Prograis flipped. I think Haney is going to come in and kind of give Prograis a boxing lesson, honestly. I don't think Prograis is going to catch him enough to put him in danger. And I think Haney is going to owe a lot of that to Lomachenko being a really tricky fighter and catching him later. I think Haney's going to learn from that. As much as it pains me to praise Haney, I hope Haney retracts his little Andrew Tate friendship so I can start being a huge Devin Haney fan again. But until he kind of walks that back, I'm all the way for Teofimo Lopez.
Yeah.
I think he's a great fighter, and I think he's going to whoop on a lot of these guys in the division. I do have to give a little more criticism of Josh Taylor, because I have always been a little critical of Taylor. I think he's a little overrated. I think he gave a poor performance against Catterall. I think he gave a poor performance against Prograis. And I think he gave a poor performance against Ramirez. And then Teo, I think, kind of exposed him even more so. But those are our thoughts on the junior welterweight division. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe if you aren't already. Make sure you check out our video on the recent heavyweight fight with Zhang. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.